In the autumn of 1981, a monk sat beneath a wooden pavilion at Wat Pah Pong in the forests of northeastern Thailand. He was 63 years old. He held a glass. It was an ordinary glass, smooth-sided, pale green from the minerals in the local sand, the kind of glass you would find in any monastery kitchen in the region. He held it up so the monks could see it. Then he said, "This glass is already broken." He turned it slowly in his hand. "To me, it is already broken. I enjoy it. I drink from it. It holds water beautifully. But I know, truly know, that one day the wind will knock it from the shelf, or my hand will slip, or it will simply grow old and fracture on its own. The moment I understand this, every moment I have with it becomes precious. Every morning I pick it up and it is still whole. That is a gift." The monks sitting around him were quiet. Some of them had been at Wat Pah Pong for a decade. Some had arrived last year from England, from Canada, from the United States. None of them would understand for some time why this particular teaching felt different from the others, because they did not yet know that within weeks Ajahn Chah would lose his voice, and that 10 years of silence, unplanned, unasked for, total, were about to begin. His full name was Chah Subhado. He was born on June 17, 1918, in a small village called Bangor, outside Ubon Ratchathani, a province in the northeastern corner of Thailand near the Laotian border, where the dry season turned the earth to red dust and the rice paddies flooded to the horizon during monsoon. He was one of 10 children. His father was a farmer and the unofficial leader of their village, not from any formal title, but from the kind of authority that accumulates in a person who resolves disputes fairly and does not need to raise his voice. Chah was ordained as a novice monk at age 9. This was not unusual. In rural Thailand, temporary ordination was a rite of passage. A son would enter the monastery for a season, receive merit on behalf of his family, then return to the fields. Chah did not return to the fields. At 20, he was ordained as a full bhikkhu. He studied the Pali Canon, memorized chants, learned the Vinaya, the ancient code of monastic conduct, 227 rules, each one a compression of accumulated wisdom about what happens when people try to live together without harming one another. He was good at the formal work. That was the problem. Something about the formality, the certificates, the temple rituals, the career structure of institutional Buddhism left him restless in a way he could not explain. He later said, "I learned the words, but not the thing the words were pointing at." In his mid-20s, Chah became a wandering monk, a tudong practitioner walking from village to village through the forests of the northeast, sleeping in the open, meditating in cemeteries, eating whatever the villagers offered. The tudong tradition in Thailand is deliberate hardship. It is not punishment, it is reduction. You walk until the walking is all there is. You eat what is placed in your bowl. You sleep where the ground is dry enough. You have no schedule, no curriculum, no arrival time. Only the practice, only the breath, only the slow unraveling of everything you thought you needed. In 1946, Chah had a brief encounter with Ajahn Mun Buddhadatta, the most revered forest master of the century, a man who slept 2 hours a night and had long since stopped distinguishing between the practice and the rest of his life. The meeting lasted one night. Chah asked Ajahn Mun a question about the nature of mind. Ajahn Mun answered. Chah later said he understood none of the words and everything that was underneath them. He walked away the next morning and kept walking, and did not stop for another 8 years. In 1954, he returned to his home province outside Ubon Ratchathani. He was 36 years old. The villagers asked him to stay. They offered him a patch of forest, overgrown, full of cobras, considered by the locals to be haunted. Chah accepted it. He called the monastery that grew there Wat Pah Pong, the forest monastery of the pond. There was no pond. The name was aspirational. Monks came slowly, then steadily. By the early 1960s, Wat Pah Pong had become one of the centers of the Thai forest tradition, rigorous, simple, humane. Chah taught not by lecturing, but by example. The monks watched what he did at 3 in the morning, and in the kitchen, and when a snake crossed the meditation path. They watched him with the glass. In 1966, a young American named Robert Jackman arrived in Southeast Asia as a Peace Corps volunteer. He was curious about Buddhism in the way that curious Americans were in those years, drawn to something he could not name, following a pull he did not entirely trust. He wandered into the Thai forest tradition. He stayed. He ordained under Ajahn Chah. He became Ajahn Sumedho. He was Ajahn Chah's first significant Western student, and the reason for what happened next. By the early 1970s, more Westerners were arriving at Wat Pah Pong: backpackers, academics, veterans of the war in Vietnam who had stayed in Southeast Asia and couldn't explain why. People from Los Angeles and London and Sydney who had tried the self-help books and the therapy and the career advancement and arrived at Wat Pah Pong with one remaining question: is there something else? The monastery absorbed them. In 1975, at Sumedho's suggestion, Ajahn Chah established Wat Pah Nanachat, the International Forest Monastery, a few kilometers from Wat Pah Pong, where the teachings could be offered in English. Chah oversaw both communities. He taught in both. He held the same glass in each place. Among the Westerners who trained under Ajahn Chah in those years was an American named Jack Cornfield, who had arrived in 1967 at 22 years old and would later help bring the Thai forest teachings to the United States. He wrote about the first time he saw Ajahn Chah hold up the glass. He described it as the most disorienting moment of his early practice. Not because the teaching was complicated, because it was entirely simple and he could feel in his body how much he didn't believe it. He later said, "I understood it with my head and refused it with everything else." That refusal, Ajahn Chah taught, was precisely the thing causing suffering. Not what was happening, the resistance to what was happening. The gap between the situation and the belief that the situation should be otherwise. In Pali, the tradition has a word for the kind of suffering this produces, dukkha, often translated simply as suffering, but closer to the sensation of a wheel whose axle is slightly off-center. Everything still turns, but nothing turns smoothly. The friction is low. The friction is constant. You barely notice it, until you do. Ajahn Chah spent 3 decades describing this friction to anyone who arrived at the forest monastery and sat still long enough to feel it. "You are already holding the broken glass," he would say. "You are just pretending it is whole." By 1981, Ajahn Chah was among the most widely respected Buddhist teachers alive. He was also unwell. He had diabetes, serious, managed imperfectly in a forest monastery in rural Thailand. His weight had declined. He moved more slowly. The monks who had been with him for years noticed small things. The pauses in his teachings grew longer. Sometimes in the evenings he sat without speaking, which was not unusual. But something in the quality of the sitting had changed. He knew. In the last weeks before the hemorrhage that would take his voice, he still came to the pavilion in the evenings when he was well enough. The monks gathered. He taught. One evening, a young monk asked him what the most important thing in the practice was. Chah looked at him for a long time. Then he looked at the glass on the table beside him. "Already broken," he said. "Just that." The monk wrote it down. He wasn't sure what to do with it. In late 1981, Ajahn Chah suffered a severe cerebral hemorrhage. He did not die, but something else happened. The speech left him. The man who had spent 40 years offering the Dharma in fluent, concrete, often funny Thai, who had explained the nature of anicca to farmers' sons and Oxford-educated psychologists alike, who had held up a glass and made impermanence feel like ordinary furniture. That man became silent. Not as a practice, not as a vow, as a fact. He lived for another 10 years. The monks at Wat Pah Pong cared for him. They bathed him and fed him and sat beside him through the long monsoon afternoons. Occasionally, in the early years, when he had partial control of his hands, he would gesture at something, a gesture that was sometimes interpreted as recognition, sometimes as instruction, sometimes as nothing at all. Thousands of people came to see him. They came from across Thailand. They came from England and Australia and the United States. They came not because he could teach them anything further. They came because they had already received the teaching, and they needed to bring it back, to hold it in the room with the person who had given it to them one more time. Ajahn Sumedho came, Jack Cornfield came. They sat. They did not expect speech. They received something else, a quality of presence that many of them later described awkwardly as more teaching than any of the talks. He was demonstrating something he could no longer say. Ajahn Chah died at Wat Pah Pong on January 16, 1992. He was 73 years old. He had not spoken for 10 years. The monks who gathered that morning described the same phenomenon that monks describe whenever a long-practiced person dies in a monastery. The room went still. Not quiet, still. As if something that had been generating a field, a warmth, a weight, a kind of sustained attention, had simply concluded. Thousands attended the cremation. The Thai royal family came. The Western students came. The ones who had arrived as backpackers with restless questions and left as monks or teachers, or simply as people who now held their coffee cup differently in the morning. They stood in the forest that had been a snake-haunted clearing 38 years before, and they held quietly the thing he had given them. Now. You are not going to live in a forest monastery in northeastern Thailand. You are not going to hand over 10 years of silence because a hemorrhage removes your voice. You don't have to. But something in Ajahn Chah's life is for you. It is always the glass, because the teaching he was offering over and over in both monasteries, in English and in Thai, to the farmer's son from the next village and the burned-out lawyer from California, was not about glasses. It was about what happens to you when you finally accept that everything you are holding is already on its way out, not as a tragedy, as a fact. The marriage, the career, the body that still works this morning, more or less, the friend who is still there, the parent who is still alive, all of it held up to the light, already broken. The moment you truly understand this, not as a concept, not as a thing you know the way you know a city's name, but as something you feel in your hands when you pick up the coffee cup in the morning, everything changes, not into grief, into attention. You stop waiting for the moment to become what you need it to be. You start receiving it as it already is. Ajahn Chah called this the practice, not a technique, not a method with prerequisites and stages, just the ongoing, humble act of holding things without pretending they are permanent. He did it with a glass. He did it with a forest. He did it with his own voice, which he held and used fully, and then released when the time came, without, as far as anyone observing him could see, excessive grief. He demonstrated the teaching with his body for 10 years after his mouth could no longer deliver it. That was perhaps the last teaching of all. Tomorrow morning, before the day gets its hands on you, find something you love. A cup, a face, the particular quality of light in a specific window. Hold it for a moment. Not with sadness, with the specific kind of attention that comes from knowing it will not always be there. That attention, unhurried, a little tender, a little clear-eyed, is the practice. That is what the glass was pointing at. Not impermanence as a philosophy, impermanence as a way of being present, not the fact that things end. But what becomes possible in you when you finally stop pretending that they won't. In the forest outside Ubon Ratchathani, Wat Pah Pong still stands. The monks still rise at 3 in the morning. They still walk the meditation paths in the dark, barefoot in the thick air before dawn, passing the place where the wooden pavilion stood, where an old man once held up an ordinary glass and explained in a few words everything that mattered. The glass, probably, is gone, broken or lost or returned to sand. The teaching it carried is not.